My dear friends, I come to you in mostly response to Stuart Rhodes' message to again stand down, and to his message that what we were doing is not a righteous cause. Also to his message that the Hammonds have not asked us to be there, or that Harney County has not asked us to be there. And I have some respect. I have respect for Stuart Rhodes, but he does not understand what is truly transpiring, or he has chosen to be in opposition. That is not mine to decide or to point out. But I do want to make it clear that I have been in communications with the Hammonds within the last 12 to 24 hours, and that they have very clearly said multiple times, both Dwight and Susie Hammond, that this is more than about them, that they have made their decision, but this is about all those other people out there, that the same things is going to happen to them. They have said multiple times that this is about Harney County, that this is about the United States and each person in it, that if we do not stand and put these things to an end, that what has happened to them will happen to more and more people. And it is that simple, that the violations of the Constitution, the blatant violations of the Constitution, will become the normal, will become a precedence. And without going into the details, this is their message, and this is what they have very clearly communicated to me, that this is more than about them, and that they support us standing. Now, I want to give you my story about how I got involved. I had recently moved. I've been moved to Idaho 6 months ago, and found out little pieces about the Hammonds just from articles that people would say and this and that, but I didn't know much about them. And my dad kept worrying about the Hammonds. He would say, "Ammon, what do you know about the Hammonds? I just feel that what happened to us is happening to them, and I'm worried about them." And I'd say every time, "I don't know much about them, Dad," and I'd kind of put it off. I felt that there was enough. Our family was fighting hard enough, that we had enough battles to fight, that we didn't need to go fight somebody else's battles. And then one Monday night, I laid on my bed, getting ready to go to bed. I'm tired after a long day of work. And a message came on my phone. And I looked at it, and it was a message, another article about the Hammonds. And immediately, this urge, this overwhelming urge came upon me to find out about the Hammonds. And I could not sleep, so I studied all through the night. And this motivation to find out about the Hammonds, to learn more. And I read every article I could read. I read part of the court proceedings, and everything I could get my hands on, I read through the night. And then that next morning, I felt this urge again, this desire to begin to write. I knew I was supposed to write something. But my emotion about the Hammonds, after I saw what was happening and found that what was happening to them was the same thing that happened to us. So my emotions were clouding my thoughts, and I was trying to get my thoughts straight so I could write. And I got on my knees and I asked the Lord and said, "Lord, if you want me to write something, then please help me clear my mind and show me what I should write." And that's what happened. In a short period of time, my mind was cleared, and I was able to write. And I wrote that letter to individuals and to government officials. And that was the first one. And during that letter, I began to understand how the Lord felt about the Hammonds. I began to understand about how the Lord felt about Harney County and about this country. And I clearly understood that the Lord was not pleased with what was happening to the Hammonds, and that what was happening to them, if it was not corrected, would be a type and a shadow of what would happen to the rest of the people across this country. And also that if we allowed the Hammonds to continue to be punished, there would be accountability. And those are the things that I felt very clearly and tried to articulate and sent it. And then once I got the letter written, I felt this desire, this urge to go to Burns and go to the Hammonds Ranch. And I got myself prepared. I told my wife that I needed to go. I was probably going to be gone for a couple days. I tried to help her understand what was going on and my thoughts and my feelings. And she could feel that they were right and that they were what I was supposed to do, and she supported me in that. I have a wonderful, beautiful wife that supports me and loves the Lord. I then went to Oregon. I'd never been to Oregon before. I headed to Burns, and on the way I began to feel that I was not supposed to go to the Hammonds' home in Burns, that I was supposed to go directly to the ranch. And I understood that Dwight and Susie, they're older, they're 74 years old, live in Burns, and they had to buy the house there so that they could, because of all the legal back and forth and the driving and everything, they had to buy a home in Burns so that they could station there. And that Stephen, the son, was at the ranch. And so as I felt I was supposed to, I went directly to the ranch. And Stephen and his ranch hand was working on the ranch, and I introduced myself, and they were very kind, and I drove with them, and I went and helped them move some cattle and helped them feed. Meanwhile, Stephen and I talked, and he told me his whole story about all of the fires and about the things that are going on and about how unjust these things were. And I want to say that Stephen is one of the most humble men that I know. I don't know that he's always been that way. I really don't know. But I know now that he was very humble, and I could tell that he loved the Lord and loved people. Okay? And I told him that I was here, I felt I was here to be able to help them in some way. And at that point, he began to somewhat decline the thought of needing help. He felt that there was no hope, there was no justice in the system, and that the only thing to do was just to bow your head and take what you're given and get through this life. I thanked him for his time after, it was after dark, and we'd spent the rest of the day together. And then I went into Burns, stayed the night there, and the next day met with Susie Hammond. Now, Susie has a little more spunk, a little more fight to her. And she's trying hard to protect her child, her son, and her husband from going to prison. And we told her the story about the Bundy family and about how we were in a very similar situation, and how the people came to our defense. And because the people came, we now are free, and we are now being protected. And for that, I am extremely grateful. I cannot express enough gratitude for the American people for what they did. And we shared these things with Susie, and she began to get hope. And then she shared them with Dwight, and he began to get a little hope that possibly the American people might be able to do something about these gross violations of their God-given rights. And maybe make some of this right. And we began to communicate. I got the full story about everything. That's what I was able to make the facts and events about. And I worked with them for 2 weeks straight, multiple hours each day, back and forth talking and getting these things straight, getting the story. I became very friendly with the Hammonds, and I learned and gained a great love and respect for them. And then I also started bringing other groups, the Pacific Patriot Network, some of the Oath Cooper groups, the Oregon Constitutional Guard, and into these conversations with the Hammonds about how we could stand and protect them. And they were great conversations of faith and hope. And then the U.S. Attorney's Office caught wind of what was going on and called the Hammonds' lawyers and told them that if the Hammonds did not end communications with us, that they would detain the Hammonds early, Dwight and Stephen early, and that they would put them in a less desirable prison. And so the Hammonds backed completely off. They felt that their lives were in danger. They felt that my life was in danger. They felt that the U.S. government would raid their home and take them. And you have to keep this in perspective. Here, Dwight is 74 years old. For him to go to a less desirable prison is certain death. He would never get back out. And then they're trying to prepare their family for them to be gone for 5 years because they've been charged as terrorists. And so if that was shortened, if they came and detained them early, they would be able to prepare their wives to take on to the ranch. Now, there's some other gross things that are going that I wanted to just inform you of, such as the Hammonds have been restricted from even buying or selling anything over $500. They have to get permission from the federal government to do that. And I could go on and on about the list of things, the great violations that have been going on to the Hammonds. But they backed away because they were afraid, because they were intimidated by the U.S. Attorney's Office. And it was hurtful, but I could understand it, but it was very hard because I knew, I'd experienced that if they just had the courage to stand, that they would be able to be free like I am free, and like my father and my brothers and my mother are free, and the ranch. They would be free like us. But they just had been beaten down to the point over the past decade, to the point that tyranny had been complete. The federal government had accomplished what they wanted to accomplish with the Hammonds. And again, I begin to understand how what has happened to the Hammond will be a type and a shadow of what happens to all Americans if we do not stand. That we will all become like them, so afraid to move, so afraid to act, so afraid to stand up. And that's what will happen if we do not put this an end. So Dwight was right. He was right. He said that this is more than about them. That this is about everybody. That this is about the federal government controlling the land and resources and putting whole counties and whole states in economic duress. This is about violations of human rights, about the federal government not even caring about what is in the Constitution, not even caring about the laws, the supreme law of the land. That's what Dwight said this is about. Not about him, not about their family, about all Americans. And he was right. Now, I left Burns, and I've been down there many, many times, met with the Hammonds many, many times, and I did exactly what the Lord asked me to do. I did it in the way that He asked me, the best I could. And He works with imperfect people, but I followed Him, and I did the best I could in the direction that He gave me. And then I didn't have any direction anymore. For a very small period of time, a couple days, I was like, I'd accomplished, and I wondered if I had done all that I was supposed to do. And I reached out to the sheriff as I was asked, tried to get the county commissioners and the county to stand up. We did a legal notice of redress of grievance that was completely ignored. We had thousands and thousands of people that signed the notice redress of grievance. And thousands of people sent emails to the sheriff, to the county commissioners, and to the state representatives, asking them to get involved, pleading with them to find out the truth about what these things were happening. pleading for them to put together an evidential hearing board so that um, these abuses can be exposed and ended. And all of those petitions were ignored. Uh, and believe me, I spent over 8 hours in collective communication with the sheriff in less than 2 weeks. I met with him many, many times, talked to him on the phone, and just a continual refusal to do what is right in this case. And so once I began and others began to realize that for whatever reason that we did not understand, the county and the state was not going to stand up against these things, even though they're just such blatant abuses. They were not going to stand up. And I then began to feel and understand some what we were supposed to do. And it became very clear. And I had a hard time with it because it was a very strong stand. And I wrestled back and forth with it, but I knew it was as so clear what we were supposed to do. It was like exactly what was happening at the Bundy Ranch when we were getting guided and directed on what we're supposed to do. That's how it was. And so I began to understand that what we were supposed to do is we were supposed to get together of individuals all across this country that understood and cared about what was happening, that understood that our Constitution was being violated, that it is hanging by a thread, that understood that these abuses to the Hammonds will continue to go on and on and on if they are not put to an end at this time. They understood that what is happening to Harney County would happen to all the counties across the United States and go into all ends of the earth if there was not a stand made. And so I began to understand that I was to call all these people together, to ask them to come and to unite together in Harney County, and that we were to create a defense for the people of Harney County so that they can begin to use their land and their resources again, so that they can get back to prospering again, get back to thriving again, that they can get rid of the fear and the intimidations that have been placed upon them, that they can get rid of the tyranny and the chains that are upon them. That is what I began to understand. And I began to understand exactly how we should do it, exactly the steps that we were to take. And so I began to move in that direction. And from the time that I began to understand and these things became very clear to me, till now, they have only become more and more clear. And they are wisdom in the Lord. And so I am asking you to come to Harney County to make the decision right now of whether this is a righteous cause or not, whether I am some crazy person or whether the Lord truly works through individuals to get his purposes accomplished. I know that we are to stand now and that we are to do these things now, or we will not have anything to pass on to our children, that they will be placed under the same exact measures that the Hammonds have been placed under. And I ask you now to come to Harney County to participate in this wonderful thing that the Lord is about to accomplish. And I say those things to you, and I'm grateful to have such great friends, and look forward to seeing you. Thank you.